evening, friends and neighbors. Or shall I say this afternoon?
Welcome back to the Broncos franchise on Madden 22. I'm your host, longtime listener. Be sure to drop a like, hit that subscribe button, and comment below. So we've reached the playoffs. Now the Browns got the bye. So we are going to be taking on the Ravens in the Wildcard Round. And as we talked about at the end of the last episode, our approach here is going to be to simulate this first game of the playoffs. We've won a couple in a row, and our usual policy is if we win 2 in a row, we simulate until we lose. Now, we're not going to do that entirely, but we are going to at least simulate this first game of the playoffs to give a chance for, the AI and the simulation to potentially get us knocked out here against a, dangerous Baltimore team. So, of course, we're not going to guarantee a win in our first ever playoff appearance. We're going to play it cool, and I believe we get some... Okay, beat the Ravens, and you get a staff points reward. I wonder what happens if you, guarantee a win. I'll bet you it fires up the other team, and they come in like more with higher awareness and stuff, and then the positive of it is that you maybe get more staff points if you win. So, weekly strategy against Baltimore, we're going to stop the pass. We'll worry about... Actually, no. See, they don't throw it very well. They throw it a lot, but they're dead last in the league in passing. So let's actually defend the outside run and see if that works. Offensively, we're going to run inside. They are pretty good against the pass and lower third against the run, so hopefully that strategy will work out. We still don't have Javonte Williams' dev trait unlocked, which to me is just mind-boggling. I mean, he's only playing in power run sets, so I guess it kind of makes sense, but it seems like, he's done so much for us this year that surely he's been on the field a lot. But anyway, not a huge deal. Let's try and get some sacks. So our usual goals for the week are going to be in place there. We might have some player upgrades to take advantage of coming into the week. And then also, we're going to look at the injury report and just see if there's anybody that we can bring back from injury. So Garrett Bowles is coming back, and that is big because that shores up the left tackle position. So that's very nice and welcome news. But we also want to go ahead and look at the injury report here. And basically, we're looking for guys that aren't injured anymore that I'm hoping can contribute. Like Jones is just a backup center. I'm not that worried about it. Sutton is going to be out probably until at least the Super Bowl if we even make it that far. See, like Johnston, I want him back, man, but I can't bring him back. So he's going to be stuck on IR the rest of the way. Glasgow is still injured for a week, so that kind of hurts. And that's really it. Everyone else is still hurt, but this one here, not being able to bring him back, kind of stinks. Because we could use him to help try and stop the run against this Baltimore offense. So, no good news there. Let's go in and see what player upgrades we've got here. Miners gets another one at guard. He's getting, what we'll do the rest of the way with him is we'll do power, and then we'll do pass protector. We'll try and keep them basically 5 apart as we move forward. There's going to be some times where I upgrade. Yeah, see, like there, he got one of both. Actually, he got one of all 3. So Next time, we'll do power again and keep trying to get him better while also staying balanced. Josie Jewell, I believe he's hurt, isn't he? Yeah, out for another 12 weeks. So, we had some key players that were injured, all season, but still managed to have a fantastic year. 13-4 is pretty darn impressive. I forgot to point out that the Chiefs did not make the playoffs. That, is huge in the overall AFC playoff picture. The Raiders did get in. They're going to take on the Bills, Jags and Titans, Packers, Vikings, Bucks and Washington, Seattle and Carolina, and then the Cowboys, the bye in the NFC. So now I think we're ready here. Let's advance, see if we pick up a win, and go from there. I have a feeling we're going to lose, but we shall see. Dang it. Yeah, we lost 29-23. Let's go look at the box score. It's kind of a bummer. Let's go back to the Wildcard Round. It was close, and they outscored us in the fourth quarter to beat us by 7. We did not run the ball well, and Bridgewater wasn't terrible. No interceptions, and he was only sacked once, but he's 11 of 19 for 115 yards. And then he got hurt, apparently, and Drew Lock came in and did not fare well. 2 interceptions, 11 for 25. We kept Lamar Jackson in check, 215 yards and 2 interceptions. We didn't get any sacks, though. He ran the ball pretty well. Melvin Gordon had a solid day, 60 yards and 3 touchdowns. Javonte Williams, 4 carries, 3 yards. Come on, man. Sammy Watkins, a good day. I'll tell you what, Jerry Jeudy turned it on. The second half of the year, he was awesome. Let's see, tackles. Patrick Queen is really good, by the way. Micah Kaiser had a pretty good day. Only 1 sack all day, and it was Malik Harrison who had the interceptions. Jimmy Smith had both for them, and then Fuller and Kareem Jackson for the Broncos. Kicking. I'll tell you what, McManus had a really good year, and he got a chip shot there. So if we maybe would have converted and got a touchdown on that drive, could have helped. And then he missed an extra point too. Sam Martin, 3 punts, 42-yard average. So it's a loss, and it hurts. But we had a good season. We win the AFC West. We beat the Chiefs twice in the process. There's one thing I actually want to look at. I don't remember really digging into our individual stats at the end of the season. We may have already done it, but I'm going to look at them again. Bridgewater had a pretty good year. A QB rating of 103 is solid. Pushing 4,000 yards, 11 interceptions, and he had a stretch for a while down the later half of the season where he did a really good job avoiding those interceptions, and he was only sacked 28 times. So the offensive line did a fantastic job. We ran the ball really well all year. I mean, if Javonte Williams doesn't get Rookie of the Year, I'm going to throw a fit. 18 touchdowns. It's insane. Yeah, Jerry Jeudy ended up with over 900 yards, which for a second-year guy, not that bad. Pretty good year for Tim Patrick as well. Noah Fant, pretty decent year. Cortland Sutton missed a lot of time with an injury. Kenny Young, 124 tackles. Pretty good year for him. Bradley Chubb, 10.5 sacks. Excuse me, sorry. We didn't really have a... I mean, he's good. Don't get me wrong. But, I want to have, like, 2 guys coming off the edge that are double-digit sacks. That's when your team really gets dangerous. Surtain, 5 interceptions. That's a really good year for a rookie. 89 tackles. Yeah, Darby had 4 picks. Jackson 3. Simmons. I'm surprised Kenny Young didn't get any interceptions. I usually pick off a couple of passes as the middle linebacker. Then McManus was perfect for the season and then missed an extra point in the playoffs to end that streak. But yeah, he had an outstanding year. He might get kicker of the year. And then a pretty good year for Sam Martin as well. So, unfortunately, what that loss means is that we're now into the off season. And we're in danger of either having a really long episode where I work my way through the entire off season, or a really short episode where I kind of break short of the draft. Anyway, we lost, so we don't get the staff points here. Actually, we get 5 staff points, and that puts us up to 36, so we've got a bunch to spend there. What I will do is I'm going to try and get through the entire offseason in this episode, but to do that, I'm going to have to, cut out a lot of what's going on and just show you the highlights. So we'll look at the upgrades that are coming up here. Draymond Jones gets one, and then a bunch of these are just roster filler free agent signings that I don't care about whatsoever. Surtain gets another one. So those are the 2 that really matter. So sit tight. We'll get through these, and then we'll move along. Okay, so we've got those upgrades as far as the players. Now we've got upgrades for the coaching staff, as we're going to add this one here that increases our ability to sign free agent safeties. And then, let's see, scheme fits have a higher interest. I think we'll do that one because it gets me all positions, whereas this one only gets me those, and I'm probably going to be looking for scheme fits anyway. So that goes and finishes all of the staff points that I had available to spend, and I think that gets us where we're ready to advance into the off season, doesn't it? It does. So actually we got a contract extension, which is noteworthy, but now what we'll do is I'll start simming through the off season and just kind of jump in and show you some highlights as we move along. All right, so we've got the annual awards here as Pat Mahomes gets the NFL MVP, which is interesting as he didn't even lead his team to the playoffs. And I'm not saying he didn't have a great year, but usually it's hard to win that when your team doesn't have the results on the field. We didn't have anybody in the running for that, but I'm not super surprised. And then Offensive Player of the Year also goes to Mahomes. Defensive, actually, wait. Let's go back to the NFL awards. MVP and then Coach of the Year. I got second behind Urban Meyer, who led the Jaguars to a 11-win season. So both of those, arguably, very impressive campaigns. It just stinks that we come up second because that just stings a little bit. Now we go to the AFC. Offensive Player of the Year is Mahomes. Did we have anybody? Teddy Bridgewater, 10th. That a boy. Defensive Player of the Year is Myles Garrett of the 15-2 Browns, and we didn't have anybody in the running there. Offensive Rookie of the Year is Najee Harris. Javonte Williams got 3rd. I'm going to look at his numbers to see how he edged us out. Trevor Lawrence, I mean, that's understandable, I guess. Leads his team to an 11-win year. on a pretty bad team at that. But man, that stinks. Surtain gets Defensive Rookie of the Year. Good for him. Best QB is Mahomes. There's Bridgewater in 4th. Best running back, Justin Taylor. Najee Harris is 2nd. So he must have had a really good season for the Steelers. There's Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams, 8th and 9th, respectively. So pretty good when you've got 2 guys on that list. Best wide receiver, Danny Amendola. Really? Okay. An interesting list there for the candidates. Tyreek finishing 10th. Best offensive lineman is Wyatt Teller of the Browns. They had the top 3. Holy. And 4 of the top 5. Jeez. How about Garrett Bowles making it onto the list? Good for him. Myles Garrett, Defensive Lineman of the Year. Nobody for us there. Not surprised. Joey Bosa, Linebacker of the Year. Bradley Chubb, 4th. Good year. He did have a good year. He was, he made a lot of big plays in the backfield particularly. Oh, and look at this. Surtain was 2nd in Best DB of the Year, and that's as a rookie. Look out. And then McManus does get Best Kicker, so good for him. In the NFC, Rodgers, Offensive Player of the Year, edges out Brady. Aaron Donald, Defensive Player of the Year. Justin Fields, Rookie of the Year, 6 and 11 for the Bears. Micah Parsons, that dude is going to be a beast. He's already an 88. Aaron Rodgers, QB of the Year. Zeke, running back. Devontae Adams at wideout. Zach Martin. Aaron Donald. Von Miller. So the Rams defense, legit up front. Patrick Peterson. Man, he is a 77 overall and got Best DB. So he must have just had like a freaking fantastic year as a veteran corner. Cairo Santos, Best Kicker in the NFC. So that's through the week of the Pro Bowl. We'll go ahead and show you the. Actually, we'll do these. How am I getting player upgrades when we? Oh, maybe somebody got Pro Bowl, or maybe he gets XP for those awards. I'm not sure, but he's now an 86 overall, which is really good for a second-year guy who's going to be around for us for a while. He's going to be expensive to re-sign though when the time comes. So look out for that. Cortland Sutton is back from injury, and now it is Super Bowl. I don't know what year it is, but the Browns and Cowboys in the Super Bowl. I bet the Browns lose. Ready? That's just what the Browns do. Yep, they got smoked. All right, so that's it for the season. We're going to advance into the off-season. There might be a few players that we have a chance to re-sign before, like one more chance before they become free agents, but I don't think there's anybody that would be on that list that we really want to bring back, but we'll take a look here just to be safe. So players ready to negotiate. What do we got here? Ojemudia. So I didn't get a chance to re-sign him during the season because he was injured, and now I get one crack at it, which stinks. I'm not going to franchise tag any of these guys, like Alexander Johnston. I kind of would like to have had a chance to bring him back for an extended stay, but we're in trouble here. So, all right, we've got to bring back Ojemudia. He's only 24, star dev trait, and he's a 76 overall. I want him around for like another 4 or 5 years, more than likely. He wants a 3-year deal, and he's not asking for a ton of money. So let's make it a 4-year deal. Drop the signing bonus down and leave the salary where it is. Come on, you better sign this, dang it. Yes. Okay, that's good. Now, can I still franchise tag somebody? I could tag Callahan, but I don't have that much cap room. I think we need to just let everybody else walk. Because we're going to have to get creative to be able to afford everybody we need with that $25 million to get better in the offseason and fill out the roster. So let's just look and see if there's any key retirements this offseason. So we're going to look. I want to look. So Calais Campbell, Amendola, Emmanuel Sanders, Colquitt McCourty, Incognito. So Bobby Massey retired, so we need a right tackle. Jared Cook retired. Dwayne Brown, Alex Mack. Okay, so that's all the ones that were on teams. Everybody else that retired were just free agents. So no like huge names on that list. So Brady's coming back. Big Ben is coming back, but he's going to be terrible. All right, we are ready to advance into free agency. Okay, so now that we're actually into free agency, we can take a look at our roster to see where our holes are. Obviously, Drew Lock being the only quarterback on the roster is an issue. We've got to figure out something there to address that. That's a big need. Javonte Williams will probably be our primary ball carrier this upcoming season, but we do need to add somebody behind him to give us some depth at that position. Ideally, somebody that's sort of an elusive style back that we can use sparingly, but Williams will definitely get the lion's share of our carries and work out of the backfield. We don't have a fullback, so we've got to find somebody there. I like where we're at wide receiver with Sutton, Judy, and Patrick. And then Hamler is okay as the fourth option, and even Hinton contributed a little bit last year. So I think we're okay at wide out for right now. Tight end, we're also in really good shape with two young, pretty good tight ends in Fant and Akwegbanam. And then Sauberts, these guys as the third options, I don't care that much how good you are, as long as you're just a decent run blocker. Garrett Bowles is going to hold it down at left tackle for a little while longer. We're getting up there in age at this position, but he's still pretty good. So as long as he, stays, competitive and healthy, we'll be okay. We're good at left guard with Reisner, 27 and a 79 overall. Moody behind him is going to end up being pretty good, especially if you give him a few more years to develop. Cushenberry, same situation. He's going to be pretty good for a while. We do need a depth option at center, so that's something we'll be on the lookout for. Glasgow will probably be our starting right guard this year, with Miners giving him some pressure at just 23 years old and a pretty well-balanced option there. We don't have any right tackles on the roster, so obviously you have to go get a couple of guys there. Draymond Jones is probably going to be our starting left end because of some of the other holes that we've got. As decent as he is and just 25 years old, we're going to try and just continue to let him develop there and hold down that spot for a while. Shelby Harris at right end is definitely going to be the starter, but he's 31, and I'm starting to get a little bit concerned about our situation on the defensive line because we've also got Purcell way up there in age and just not a lot of depth here. So we definitely need to try and find a defensive tackle who's really good and can play right away. Malik Reed is going to have to be the starting left outside linebacker, and we've got some depth options here. Nothing like stellar, but Weatherly is good enough that as long as Reed isn't out for an extended period of time, I'd feel okay with Weatherly holding it down for a game or two. Josie Jewell is going to jump into the number one spot at middle linebacker now that he's going to be healthy coming into next season. And then I'm kind of okay with where we're at. Young played pretty well for us last year, as did Micah Kaiser. So without a lot of issues with age right here, I think we're going to let that go for another year or two and just kind of see how things go. Bradley Chubb obviously going to be the starter at right outside linebacker with Cooper backing him up. In the secondary, we're okay at corner. Surtain is going to be really good. Fuller is going to be pretty good. But he's 30 years old, so look out for him to start to regress a little bit. Ronald Darby played well for us last year. And then Ojemudia is going to be healthy again for us. as the dime back, and then even Ford is not that bad at a 72 overall. We're okay here for another year or two before we need to start looking to get a little bit younger. Free safety, we are solid with Simmons as the starter and young Caden Stearns as his backup. Strong safety is a little bit of a question mark because I don't know how confident I am with Jamar Johnson as our starter here. He's just a 70 overall, kind of lacks awareness. He's not super fast. So he could be a little bit of a liability for us at that position, but again, we've got a lot of holes that we need to try and address that will certainly take priority. So some of what we do in the draft is going to depend on what we can find in free agency to fill some of those roles with the $26 million that we've got available in the cap. All right, so we are through the first week of free agency, and as you can see down at the bottom here, we made a splash in the free agent market, picking up Tariq Cohen. That gives us a speedy receiver as a second option out of the backfield, and he is a very good pass catcher as well. So that will help us shore up that position for a couple of years. We pick up Will Richardson Jr., a right tackle. He's going to be the second string guy. Now we got to figure out what to do for a starter. Kareem Jackson is coming back for one more year. We got him, I think, for about a $5 million contract. I'm really excited about this pickup. We get Alex Ingold, the former Raider fullback, who's a pretty good utility guy, but also a pretty good run blocker. And then we've got Jones at D tackle that will help us up the middle. Now, what that essentially leaves us with at this point is we still desperately need a quarterback. We absolutely have to find a right tackle. So those two positions are still serious question marks. And now what I want to show you as we look at the mock draft, quarterback is probably our first concern, although if we don't have a right tackle to protect him, we're in trouble. Now, this is the only right tackle that I could see us being sure that we're happy with. But we'd have to trade up to get him, and if we do that, I don't know how we get a quarterback. So there's a challenge. And then as we look down, here is QB number 1, 2, and 3. And then the guy that I kind of earmarked as a possible option for us to take is going 20th to Minnesota when we pick 24th. So we'd have to trade up to get him more than likely, but that's not a huge way up the board to move. Now, what I like about this guy is that he's got good short accuracy and pretty good deep accuracy as far as we know. He's got a great arm. What I don't like about him is that he is not mobile. He's going to run about like a fullback from a speed perspective, and that is not ideal. Now, he's got A, awareness, and B, injury. I don't know how good he is at holding on to the football, but this is a guy that if we draft late in the first round, I think he would be good enough to deserve the starting role on this team over Drew Lock, but I don't necessarily see him as a long-term solution for us because I like mobile quarterbacks. So basically, we've got a decision to make. And some of that starts with, are we happy with Jones as our best defensive tackle? He's only a 76 overall. I think as good as our defense was last year, he helps us there to where we're actually better up the middle. So I think it's satisfactory. The problem becomes what do we do? Actually, so we've already solved the strong safety issue. If we trade up to get that right tackle, then we don't get Morris. But I don't feel like we're dead in the water if we don't get Morris. We've got $12 million left in the salary cap. So what I'm thinking that we try to do is go and find a free agent QB on the market to come back and help us for a couple of years. Now, we are not paying Teddy Bridgewater $20 million a year. And then it basically gets down to, like, you've got guys that are wanting way more than what we want to spend. And then it's, Fitzpatrick. Mariota is a possibility, but he's not that much better than Drew Lock. So I'm afraid that this upcoming season is just going to be a mess at quarterback for us. Mariota is the guy that I'm kind of thinking about maybe taking a flyer on because we can afford him. And if we make it like a 1-year deal and can sign him, he should be decent enough to hopefully hold us over at that position until next season. And that might give us an opportunity to try and trade up and get that Ellington. But before we, finalize that as sort of our strategy, the one other thing that I do want to look at is a potential prospect at right tackle that might be good enough to be the starter, but it's kind of risky, and it is this guy right here. Robbie Robbins. He's projected as a second or third round guy. He's got B for impact block, but that's all that we know about his key ratings. He's 24 years old, and he did pretty well at the combine and then actually did worse at the pro day, at least as far as his bench reps. But those physicals are good enough that I feel like he's athletic enough and strong enough that, it's going to come down to how well polished he is at the NFL level. He's got good run block finesse. The pass block power is maybe a little bit of a concern because I don't know what kind of a pass blocker he is. So we would be taking a serious chance with this guy, and we probably would have to take him in the second round. And if he's a bust, we're in trouble. So that's my concern there because I just don't know if there's anybody else that like stands out as a pretty solid option. I mean, this guy looks like he could end up being decent. Again, the strength at the combine was impressive, but then at the pro day, he didn't, show up quite as well. So maybe a little bit of concern there. And then what we see here is that he's durable, but we just don't know if he can pass block or run block. So I have some concerns at right tackle. This Ellington guy, I will show you just so you know what we would be trading up to try and get. A for impact block. We don't know the other key ratings, but his physicals are pretty impressive. He's in the top 5 or 10 pretty much across the board, with the exception of the broad jump, which I don't care too much about. He definitely has the agility and the strength to be a top tier offensive tackle at the NFL level. And then when we see his skills, B for run block finesse, C for pass block power, and A for impact block. So we don't know a ton about him, but he's projected as a top 5 guy, and the physicals definitely support it to where I'll bet you he is a hidden dev trait. And he is the kind of guy that I'm looking to maybe try and trade up to get. But to do that, we absolutely have to go find a quarterback that can start for us this season, because after Brett Morris, like, I don't know that I see anybody farther down the list here that I would be willing to try and take a chance on. I'm going to look through these just to make sure that I'm not missing anything as far as a sleeper down here that could, help us right away. But it's more than likely that we maybe try and make an offer to get Marcus Mariota here as the quarterback, and then maybe go find a way to trade up and get Ellington. My concern is how much do I have to give up to go that far up the draft board and get a guy that is, hypothetically what you would consider a can't miss prospect at offensive tackle. So we'll see what shakes loose. Okay, so we're going to have a change of strategy here from what we just kind of talked about. So the reality is, for us to trade up and get that top-notch tackle, we're going to have to give up a lot because that's a number 3 draft pick essentially that I've got to move up to, and I'd have to give up a ton to get there. So rather than trying to do that, I can make a deal with the Vikings, who are just 4 spots ahead of us in the first round, to trade up to where I can get Morris with that first pick. And I think he's going to be a pretty well-polished rookie QB, and I'm hoping that he's also got a hidden dev trait to where he turns into a really good player. And even if long-term he doesn't, turn into the guy that I want on this team because he's not mobile, we can at least deal him to another team if and when we find a rookie QB that definitely sparks our interest. So I'm looking at DJ Fluker now. He's already got an offer from the Dolphins, as you can see there, and it's a pretty good one from the looks of things. So what I'm going to try, we've got $8 million in cap, or well, we've got I think $12 million in cap room. So even if I make him this offer, which they say is basically a very fair deal, it's only a 1-year contract. I still have $8 million in cap room, and it frees up the option for me to try and just get a quarterback, and all of our problems for at least this next year are solved. So you see there, we're well ahead of the Dolphins now as far as his level of interest. So I'll bet you that he signs this offer. So that said, I think we're ready now to advance to the next round of free agency, and we'll see if he takes this, because then that kind of shores up what my plans are going to be moving into the draft. And Fluker accepted that offer, which is big because now we kind of know what we're looking for going into the draft. We've got to get that Brett Morris with our first round pick, and we're going to have to trade up probably to the number 20 spot to be able to get him out from under the Vikings, who have selected him in each of the mock drafts that we've seen since the end of the season. So there's that. Let's go ahead and look at the scouting private workouts situation here, because obviously we want to make sure that Morris is our guy. So first, we're going to go ahead and add him and bring him in for a closer look just to be sure. But I'm pretty sure he is 100% going to be our first round pick. Beyond that, like, the rest of our lineup situation at this point is actually not that bad. Now, I do want to make sure that we get a second center. We can probably wait until about the third round. I'm imagining that these 2 guys will probably be gone. You figure if 2 teams take a center in the first, second, or even half of the third round, these 2 are gone. So I'm hoping that this guy is here. So we're going to select him to hopefully learn a little bit more about him before we have to decide whether or not we want to draft him. And then finally, I think we still need to look at defensive tackle, because I'm just not real crazy about what we're looking at for that long term. And I think that either one of these 2 guys is probably a realistic option for us to maybe get in the second round. I've actually done a little bit of homework on these 2 already, and I think Spencer Johnston is going to be our guy. So those are the 3 that we're going to look at, and there is a strong likelihood that unless I see something I really don't like in the next update that we get after getting those guys in for workouts, those could be our top 3 picks in this upcoming draft. We'll have to wait and see, but that's kind of what I'm leaning toward. The key is going to be if everybody is actually there when we're ready to take them. So let's go ahead, advance to the final final week of the off season here, or the free agent signing period, and I think we're ready now for the final mock draft, which is going to be key because we want to see if the Vikings do in fact still have that Brett Morris in mind with that 20th pick, and they do. And it doesn't look like we learned any more about him. We were already at 80% completion. That's still where we are, but everything about him except for his speed I really like. So far what I see about him, the A awareness, the A short accuracy, and even the B deep accuracy are all, kind of high on my list. Plus he appears to have a pretty good arm where it says he's got great throw power. So as long as he's good enough to just kind of stand in the pocket and throw darts all over the field, I can probably use him. So that's good to see. Now we just know that we need to trade up and get him. before we go ahead and move forward into the draft, I do want to go ahead and look at those other two guys that we tried to get a closer look at. We learned absolutely nothing about Mitch Wilkins. And at defensive tackle, okay, so Spencer Johnston came in. He's listed as a speed rusher type, which is not the end of the world. He's got A, finesse moves, B, tackling, C, block shedding is not the greatest, D, power moves is not the greatest. But let's see what kind of, if I remember right, he's a speedy guy anyway. Yeah, so he's kind of a quick prototype for a defensive tackle, and he's still pretty strong. You see the bench reps are 4th and 6th in the combine and the pro day, and all of those physicals are pretty solid. He's top 10 in all of them, both in the combine and the pro day. So I think this is going to be our guy. He's got A, play recognition, A, injury, and A, finesse moves. I'll tell you what, you line him up against, a guard or a center that's just not very polished, and he's going to get some sacks. So I really think that if we can get him in the second round, he could be a steal. Because there's a good chance he's got the old hidden dev trait, which is what we're looking for. I'd like to see that with Morris as well, but we just don't know really what to expect there. And I think we are ready to go ahead and move in to this year's NFL draft. So it's the 2021 offseason, and we're coming off of a 13-4 year. We lost in the wildcard round, lose our quarterback, and now we've got to rebuild. But I think we could get lucky here with Brett Morris, assuming we can lock him up through a trade for with the Vikings. So let's go in, and we got to go manage roster and trades. Now, what I'm hoping that they will take is our first rounder. I'm assuming that they are going to want, and then I'm hoping that like a 5th rounder is enough. Since we're only trading up a few picks, I'm hopeful that they aren't asking for a ton. So we'll try that package. A 4th rounder might do it, but I would like to keep that 4th rounder and hopefully get one more player in this draft that I think is like usable right away. So we'll kind of have to see how that goes. But let's see if they take this first and go from there. Very, very close. So I think what I'm going to do is just throw in our 7th rounder because I don't care about a 7th round pick. If I didn't get a fullback in free agency, I would try to trade them next year's 7th round pick, but I'll bet you they'll take this. Okay, so now we're going to have 1 through 4 and a 6th round pick. So we won't have picks in the 5th or 7th round, but that gets us up to where we're now picking 20th instead of 24th, and we are going to get Brett Morris, and he's going to be our quarterback of the future, at least in the present. So,
Broncos are on the clock now.
We're ready to go ahead and make the pick. Cross your fingers that we get the hidden dev trait here, because that could be critical to our long-term success. We definitely want this guy. I'm not even going to look around at anybody else. And it is a hidden dev trait. That is fantastic. Now, the speed of 70, a little bit of a concern. He does have good acceleration. So, if I have to try and pull it down and run with him, he might be able to at least avoid sacks. But I don't know. We're not going to have as many plays where we get way out of the pocket, extend the play, throw on the run, and complete something downfield. That's just not going to be this guy's, kind of style. But, with offensive line that is hopefully better than it was last year, we might be able to protect him well enough to where he can just sling it all over the field straight out of the pocket. So now we're hoping that, what was the dude's name at defensive tackle? Johnston. That's who we're hoping is still there, because that's the pick that I think we're going to... Okay, and here he is. And now I'll show you why I'm liking him over Watson. So Watson, F power moves. He's only 296 pounds, so he's not real big anyway. He does have very good physicals. So, in that regard, he stacks up pretty well with Johnston. But when we look at his skills, it's C awareness, B recognition, and F power moves, and I don't know what kind of finesse moves or even block shedding he's got. So it's hard for me to, to lean on him over Johnston. Because when I started looking at Johnston, I already knew that he had the A finesse moves. That's why I wanted to get a closer look at him. And I think he's just the better of the two players. This is our guy. And another hidden dev trait. So the 22-year-old out of Georgia, he's got 90 for strength. 77 for speed is actually pretty good for a defensive tackle. To have that kind of strength and speed and the finesse moves that he's going to bring, he could end up being a beast at defensive tackle. So we're going to call him the beast from the SEC East. Now let's go ahead and skip forward. The next pick that we're looking for is at center, and it's, what was the guy's name? Wilkins is who we're wanting here. So if we can get this guy, everything plays out exactly like we had hoped. I would be thrilled if we get another hidden dev trait, but that's asking a lot, especially for a guy that's projected as a day 3 draft pick. But he's got A for run blocking. He's got pretty decent physicals. The strength might be a little bit of an issue. Nothing there is like absolutely phenomenal, but none of them are like dangerous as far as like just being an issue. And then here, he's got all A's, B's, and then C for run block finesse, but an A in run blocking overall. So I think this guy could be a really good pick, and he's just going to be a backup for me. So it's not a huge deal. We got the normal dev trait, which is a little bit disappointing. That strength is a concern at just 84. But again, he's going to be a backup because we've got, what's his name, Cushenberry, that's going to be the starter for the foreseeable future. All right, so we've got one more pick before we swing all the way down to the 6th round, and God knows what we're going to get. Now here, I'm thinking we look for either a cornerback or a halfback. So I scouted a few guys out before we signed back on here, and I'm trying to remember who it was. It was a day 3 guy, and I think it was this dude out of Florida, Trey Stevenson. Now, the thing that scares me, I don't know anything about his key ratings. There are actually a couple things that scare me. But again, we're talking 4th round here, and he's a depth guy at this point because we've already got a couple of running backs. His physicals aren't the greatest. Like, his speed isn't outrageous. But if you look at his shuttle time, that tells me that this dude is shifty and pretty quick. He's got a good cone drill and a good shuttle time. So he's got the ability to accelerate, hit the hole kind of thing, and it's just his top-end speed that might not be the greatest. And then here, he's got B's, a C for awareness, and that A for medium route running is an indication that this guy is probably a good receiver out of the backfield and could be a nice option for us as a depth guy at halfback. Now, we're also going to look at corners, and the one that I was hoping... Okay, so this guy right here at the top, I wasn't sure if he was still going to be here. You can see he's been moving up the draft board. Now, he doesn't have the greatest key ratings. If that press was a C, I probably would have gone for this guy because he has very good physicals considering he's still available in the 4th round. He's got good strength, good speed, pretty good quickness. Like, there's nothing there that's an issue. It's just when I look here, it's all C's and D's, and that tells me he's probably not very well polished. And if he's not a hidden dev trait, this guy's never going to be much use to us. That's why I'm thinking, like, I'm never going to play that guy. But this dude at halfback, if he is a good pass catcher... let's actually look at Newhouse one more time. I can't remember why I kind of... Oh, the D carrying is why I skipped over him. I'm not taking you if I know you're a fumble waiting to happen. So we're going to take Trey Stevenson out of Florida, just hoping that he's good enough, like in the high 60s maybe. A hidden dev trait would be fantastic, but it's unlikely. And we do get one. So that is an absolute freaking killer draft class at this point. Because the A's, B's, and C's there tell me he's probably going to be around a 70. And you get a 4th-round draft pick, halfback, that's a hidden dev trait. And that could turn into somebody that, in a few years, he's in the high 70s or low 80s and ready to be, sort of your 3rd down back and playing a lot. So that is fantastico. All right, we got one more pick. We will look at corner because I always like to try and get younger at corner, but I don't know that there's going to be anyone there this deep that I have the confidence to select. If there's somebody that's got crazy good physicals, come on, get in there. If there's somebody that has crazy good physicals, we might take a flyer on them just hoping that they are a hidden dev trait, but I doubt we're going to see that. So F zone coverage and the physicals are just decent. This probably won't take long because there's only 2 that were projected to get drafted. He's an F for zone coverage. Now his physicals are actually not that bad, but that F, he's all F's and D's. He's a kick returner. You don't do me any good, Paul McPherson. I think what I'm going to do here is let's just go and we're going to go here, and this actually works out. The top guy on the board is a wide receiver who I was kind of thinking about maybe looking for one anyway. Now, I wonder why he's fallen this far down the draft board, but if he was projected to go in the 2nd or 3rd round and he's still available, we're going to take a chance with him. D for release is not the greatest. He's got decent strength. None of those are actually all that good, to be honest. The speed is probably the biggest concern, but how big is he? He's 6 foot, 200 pounds. He's probably strong enough to where he can use his body to kind of make plays, but he doesn't appear to be a great route runner. Whatever. It's the 6th round. We're probably not going to get anything outstanding. The normal dev trait, that's about as expected. Now we just kind of have to hope that maybe he's at least like mid to high 60s to where maybe at some point I can use him. But that's it. Those are our 5 picks. I feel like we did very well. I really wish Morris would have been a mobile type QB, and I'll tell you what, if he's not like at least a 75 overall, I don't know if this draft class is going to work out, because we need a guy that can come in and start right away and be pretty effective. So take a look at the draft recap here, and let's see what we've got. Okay, so Morris is a 76 overall. He's got good awareness. Again, the speed is a little bit of a concern, but he has decent acceleration and agility. The carrying scares me a little bit, being just 61, because that could mean that he's going to fumble a fair amount, but hopefully I can avoid that by just getting rid of the football. The problem is, to do that, sometimes I might need to buy time by getting out of the pocket, and he can't really do that. So a little bit of an issue or concern, but we'll see if he can hack it at the pro level. Then we've got the beast from the Southeast, or the beast from the SEC East, whatever we want to call him, Spencer Johnston, 72 overall. He's got 90 for strength, and remember, the finesse moves are what I think could make this guy the real deal. Where are you, finesse moves? Come on. 77 is actually not as good as I would have hoped, but it's still not that bad. So I think he can end up being pretty good for us. Just give him a couple years to develop. And then Wilkins will be our backup center. Stevenson, a 70 overall with the hidden dev trait. Look out for this guy to contribute before too long, especially if we get into a situation where, somebody gets hurt. He's got to step up and play a bigger role. Now, the carrying of just 73, that's an issue. If you're a running back, you got to be able to hold on to the football. I don't know if he's going to be that guy. And then Justin Short, not sure we're ever going to have a whole lot of use for him. But you never know. He might develop over the next few years. We've got a couple years to try and let him develop. We'll see if he turns into anything that we can use as maybe a slot guy or, just a guy that we send on a bunch of go routes to try and, free up things underneath or deep over the middle, etc. So, so now let's actually go ahead and look at our roster. Now that we've got everybody on the team that we're going to have for this season, Morris will be our starting quarterback, and we're just going to throw him into the fire and see how he does. At halfback, we've got Williams, and then Cohen and Stevenson. I think I signed Cohen to a 2-year deal. So that'll give Stevenson a little bit of time to try and develop and kind of, hone in on his craft. But Williams is going to be our guy this year. He's the best that we've got by far. So he's going to definitely get the lion's share of the carries. I really like what we've got in Alec Ingold at fullback. Wide receiver, we're pretty good and we're pretty deep now. With these three, even if one gets hurt, we still have 2 really good NFL wide receivers on our flanks, and then we're good at tight end. Left guard, we've got Bowles at 83 overall, Reisner is 79. We've got a good backup behind him. Cushenberry is just a 75, but he's young and will continue to develop because he's a star dev trait, isn't he? Yep. And then we've got Wilkins behind him as a rookie, so we're solid at center for several years. Glasgow is a decent right guard, and then we've got Miners that's going to be a pretty good right guard. Within a couple of years, he's going to take over that starting role. In fact, probably as early as next year. And then Fluker will be our right tackle. Remember, we had Massey here last year who was getting way up there in age and was about, mid to low 70s overall anyway. So I don't feel like we downgraded there. And even if we would have drafted a rookie, I'll bet you it wouldn't have been a ton, much of an upgrade from 72. So we'll see how that goes. We got Jones at left end, Harris at right end, Jones up the middle with Johnston as the rookie, kind of giving us a little bit of depth there, which means Purcell is probably not going to get a lot of playing time this year or ever again. Malik Reed, 75 overall at left outside linebacker. We're okay up the middle. We'll have to see how we like playing with Josie Jewell instead of Kenny Young. He doesn't have nearly as much speed, but he's got better awareness and some other things that maybe might help him a little bit. But honestly, we might rock Kenny Young again just for the little bit of extra speed and see how that goes. I'm not sure. Bradley Chubb at right outside linebacker. Surtain and Fuller on the outside. Darby and Ojemudia are dime backs, and then Ford as a depth option for us. Justin Simmons still carrying the free safety starting position, and then Jackson at strong safety with Johnson backing him up, who just wasn't ready to be the starter at a 70 overall. Normal dev trait. I don't think that's the solution that we were looking for. So, last thing we're going to look at for this episode is actually, if we go into the recap, I want to look around the league and really just kind of look probably down through the first couple of rounds and see who the absolute rock stars are. So, the Lions take a right outside linebacker with the number 1 overall pick, and at 71 overall and a normal dev trait, that's an absolute bust. There's your Lions for you. The Jets take Cleary, 74 overall, and he is a hidden dev trait and pretty well balanced, so he could end up being really good. Ellington is that right tackle that we were going to trade up to get. He's a 71 overall, but he's a hidden dev trait. So he would have been actually worse than Fluker, but by the end of this season, he's going to be much better than Fluker, almost for sure. If he's going to be a starter, he's going to develop pretty quickly. Then you've got Mullins. I didn't even really look at him, but left tackle, 70 overall, and a hidden dev trait as well. So either way, for us to trade that far up in the draft would have been pretty tough. Rob Hancock, 76 overall, a 71 overall QB. So we got arguably the best quarterback in the draft class. Considering Hancock is a normal dev trait, Cleary's not as polished, and our guy is also a hidden dev trait. We did pretty well here, if you ask me. Valentine at right end. How about Peter Bradley, a 74 overall corner with a hidden dev trait? That's a pretty good pick there for the Giants. So the Giants got a stud right tackle and a stud corner, so that's pretty good. And I think they have a third draft pick in the first round that we have to keep an eye out for. Another right tackle, 70 overall, a corner at 74 for the Eagles. Defensive tackle, 70 overall, 74 overall, 73, 74. How about 76 overall, but a normal dev trait for the Texans there. Pretty good wide receiver in Joey McClendon, 75 overall. 4 wide receivers in a row taken right there, and then we get Morris way down here. 76 overall is the best overall in the entire draft class, at least in the first round, and we got him with the number 20 pick, and he's a hidden dev trait. So pretty good if you ask me. Who did the Vikings? They ended up taking this guy, Matthew Strait, another 76 overall and a hidden dev trait. So that's actually a pretty good pick. That worked out well for them. And actually here, 77 overall, Gregory Townsend, a hidden dev trait, elusive back, rookie out of SMU. He's already 23, and at running back, you don't have a ton of years before Father Time starts to catch up with you. Now I'm just going to kind of look down through the second round. How about a 78 overall elusive back, also a hidden dev trait out of Houston, 23 overall, or 23 years old as well. So that's kind of interesting. There's the best center in the draft, that Martin. We actually had highlighted him, but I knew we wouldn't be able to get him late in the second or even into the third. And I don't see anybody else down here that really stands out. So any steals in the third round? 70s, fourth round. Nothing crazy down here. 71 in the fifth round. So about a 72 overall defensive tackle in the late fifth round. See a hidden dev trait? I'm going to lose my mind if we overlooked him. No. Okay. Doesn't seem like there are any other gems hidden down here. How about a 70 overall wide receiver in the sixth round? All right, good enough. I feel like we did pretty well here. I'm kind of glad that we didn't go with the idea of like Mariota and then the right tackle, because we wouldn't have really gotten better at right tackle right now, but we would be a little bit worse off at quarterback than I feel like we are with Morris. So that is it for the off season. So I believe we are ready to now move forward to the 2022 preseason. And there's really not a lot that I'm going to show you there, other than maybe I might show you the results of the games, but we'll probably do that
when DeMarcus
next
Ware
episode.
Was selected 11th overall
we go
in the
into
2005 NFL Draft, he became the first
plus
Troy
5 finesse moves
University
for linebackers for the next 6 weeks. That'll help Bradley Chubb get a couple of sacks, hopefully. But anyway, what we'll do is we'll sim through the preseason, and I will then, like, as we're ready for week 1, we will start with a preseason recap, show you those games as far as the box scores, and then talk about the depth chart, set some goals and that sort of thing before we start game 1, and that'll do it. So that's going to do it for this episode. If you have not done so already, please be sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, comment below, and we will see y'all next time.
Good evening, friends and neighbors. Or shall I say this afternoon?